Hello there, you're watching L24 Nightly News with me, Madam Zian, to the headlines. New massacre committed by the Israeli occupation in Jabalia al-Balad leaves no fewer than 50 people dead or missing. Gaza's Ministry of Health reveals that 12 nurses and paramedics have been killed by the occupation within a week. Guterres affirms he will not support any plans that violate humanitarian principles. Also coming up alongside the opening of the Algerian product exhibition in Nouakchott, Algeria and Mauritania stress the importance of boosting and strengthening trade cooperation. The two countries signed several key agreements on the sidelines of the Joint Business Forum. In Sudan, the army announces its control over new cities and areas in South Kordofan and North Darfur. The government denounces the U.S. administration's decisions. New warnings of a worsening humanitarian situation amid escalating fighting. And the fifth round of Iranian nuclear talks ends with cautious optimism. Tehran calls talks complex and condemns new U.S. sanctions as undermining diplomacy. Hello and welcome again to your nightly news. First, the Palestinian Civil Defense said that an Israeli airstrike on a house in Jabalia al-Balad left more than 50 people dead and missing, according to a preliminary toll. According to local sources also, the Israeli occupation's warplanes carried out an airstrike targeting a house in Jabalia north of the Gaza Strip, resulting in more than 50 dead and missing, in addition to others injured.
The Israeli occupation forces last night targeted this 5-story house. This house shelters displaced persons and the owners of this house. Approximately more than 50 people were inside this house. Those who got out of this house are only a very small number of children and women. The largest number is still under the rubble. As you can see, citizens themselves are trying to search for the martyrs or survivors.
And the number of martyrs from the Zionist bombardment that targeted various areas across the Gaza Strip since dawn today has risen to 85 Palestinians. The occupation's series of airstrikes targeting neighborhoods and residential buildings comes amid ongoing aerial and ground shelling across the entire strip. Gaza's government media office condemned the targeting of 8 security personnel as a full-fledged crime, accusing Israel of deliberately disrupting the flow of humanitarian aid and medical aid. In a statement Friday, the office said the attack aims to create chaos in service of a broader plan to engineer starvation and deny treatment, calling it part of a pattern of serious violations of international humanitarian law and the Geneva Conventions.
The targeting of individuals carrying out purely humanitarian duties securing the delivery of aid constitutes a full-fledged crime and exposes the true intentions of the Israeli occupation to obstruct the flow of humanitarian and medical assistance and to deliberately create chaos in service of a strategy that engineers starvation and the death of the sick. It has become evident that the occupation army is systemically enabling the looting of humanitarian aid and medical supply trucks, ensuring they do not reach those in need by deliberately targeting those tasked with organizing and securing safe distribution channels. This crime is not an isolated incident, but part of a continuing pattern of grave violations of international humanitarian law and the Geneva Conventions.
The Director General of the Palestinian Ministry of Health in Gaza, Dr. Munir al-Bursh, confirmed that the Zionist occupation has killed 12 nurses and paramedics from the Ministry of Health within a week. Al-Bursh stated that these nurses and paramedics were among the most skilled personnel working in intensive care units, adding that the occupation killed some of them along with their entire families. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres reaffirmed Friday that he will not support any Gaza plan that violates humanitarian law. Speaking to reporters at UN headquarters, Guterres said the UN and partners are ready to deliver aid, but stressed the need for a permanent ceasefire, hostage release, and full humanitarian access. He warned of massive needs, severe restrictions on goods, and unacceptable delivery delays imposed by the occupation forces.
As the world's leading hunger assessment found, the entire population of Gaza is facing the risk of famine. All the aid authorized until now amounts to a teaspoon of aid when a flood of assistance is required. Israel has clear obligations under international humanitarian law. It must treat civilians humanely, with respect for their inherent dignity. It must not forcibly transport, deport, or displace the civilian population of an occupied territory. And as the occupying power, it must agree to allow and facilitate the aid that is needed.
Algeria strengthens its economic footprint in Africa's Nouakchott hosts the 7th Algerian Product Exhibition, a key step toward deeper regional integration and growing trade with Mauritania. Hossam Barkan has the report.
One of Algeria's most significant trade events targeting foreign markets opened today, the 7th edition of the Algerian Product Exhibition in Mauritania. This year's edition records a high turnout of traders and economic operators from various sectors in a step aimed at expanding economic partnerships and strengthening market presence, especially in the neighboring markets, with Mauritania at the forefront.
First of all, we thank the Algerian state for opening horizons for its manufacturers to transfer their expertise and products across African villages and other countries. The goal of our participation is to gain as many customers as possible here in Mauritania.
Participants see the exhibition as a genuine opportunity to get closer to the Mauritanian consumer and to better introduce the Algerian product, known for its quality, variety, and competitive prices.
Today we brought traditional carpets, copperware, artisanal baskets, and artistic ceramics. As you can see here in the exhibition, we've also brought Zalige tiles and many other Algerian products.
This exhibition is for our Algerian brothers, and it's excellent. Algerian products are of high quality, and the exhibitors are also top-notch. I am proud of this Algerian-Mauritanian exhibition.
The 7th edition of the exhibition is not just passing trade event, but a milestone in Algeria's broader strategy to cement its economic presence deep in Africa and to encourage the expansion and competitiveness of Algerian products in diverse markets, starting from the gateway of Nouakchott.
Mauritanian President Mohamed Ould Sheikh Al Ghazouani received Algerian Trade Minister Tayyip Zitouni at the Presidential Palace in Nouakchott as part of the 7th Algerian Products Exhibition. According to a statement from Algeria's Trade Ministry, Zitouni conveyed President Abdelmajid Tebboun's greetings, while President Ghazouani expressed his pride in the strategic ties between the two nations and asked Zitouni to relay his regards to the Algerian president. The meeting focused on ways to boost economic cooperation, reflecting a shared political will to expand and deepen bilateral relations.
Mr. President, after reviewing all these data, we aim to elevate our trade and economic relations to match the level of the strong political ties that already exist between the leaders of both countries. The minister issued a series of recommendations to remove all obstacles, emphasizing that Algeria and Mauritania are not just common markets. They share a deep-rooted history and distinguished political relations between the two peoples, the two countries, and their leaders.
An Algerian Economic Forum was held on Friday in the Mauritanian capital Nouakchott, focusing on ways to strengthen partnerships in line with the ambitions of both countries. Held alongside the 7th Algerian Products Exhibition, participants highlighted the forum as a major opportunity for companies, especially private ones, to build mutually beneficial partnerships.
Today, we are presented with a great opportunity to transform our deeply rooted historical relationship into an active economic engine that unleashes our vast potential across numerous promising sectors, such as renewable energy, infrastructure, agriculture, fisheries, and mining.
Algerian-Mauritanian relations are not a product of the moment. They are the result of a long story of brotherhood and cooperation. Today, we're writing a new chapter together, one titled Opportunities, and its content is joint action and shared success.
Algeria and Mauritania signed agreements on pharmaceutical export and distribution investment and maritime transport. The deals were concluded during the Algerian-Mauritanian Economic Forum in Nouakchott alongside the Algerian Products exhibition. Key agreements include a partnership between Saidal and Chinkeri Pharma for medicine distribution in Mauritania and West Africa, and another between Kinan Maritime Transport and Mauritania's Manu Port. The sign-in was overseen or supervised by Algerian Minister Tayyip Zitouni and Mauritanian Minister Zainab Ahmedna. Algerian delegations at the UN Decolonization Committee's annual seminar reaffirmed support for the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination. Delegates from Africa, Asia, and Latin America meeting in Dili, East Timor, voiced concern over human rights violations in occupied Sahrawi territories and emphasized that the Western Sahara issue remains a decolonization matter requiring resolution in line with UN resolutions. And for its part, Algeria reiterated its unwavering and unconditional support for the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination. The Director General of Multilateral Relations at the Algerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Abdelghani Mrabat, affirmed during the meeting of the UN Committee of 24 in Dili, Timor-Leste, that Algeria, which suffered from the scourge of colonialism, cannot under any circumstances abandon its steadfast support for just causes. He expressed Algeria's regret at the lack of any tangible progress in organizing a free referendum in Western Sahara in accordance with the General Assembly Resolution 1514.
Algeria reiterates its unconditional support for the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination and regrets the lack of tangible progress in organizing a free referendum in Western Sahara as stipulated in General Assembly Resolution 1514. Neither imposed facts nor attempts to alter the demographic composition nor unilateral statements or initiatives can change the international legal status of Western Sahara, which remains clearly a non-self-governing territory included in the UN decolonization agenda.
Algeria's representative at the UN Committee of 24 meeting affirmed in response to the allegations made by the Moroccan occupation representative in Timor-Leste that Moroccan lies will be prosecuted.
Justice will always prevail, and it has already overthrown the Moroccan masquerade, which for decades has vainly attempted to fabricate a false legal reality. The International Court of Justice unequivocally settled the matter in 1975, confirming the absence of any sovereign ties between Morocco and Western Sahara.
Abdelghani Mrabat, in his intervention at the Timor-Leste meetings, considered the Moroccan autonomy plan to be a modern version of colonialism and that its contents represent a dangerous precedent that threatens the entire international legal system.
The Moroccan autonomy plan is an updated version of colonialism. The content and objectives of the so-called autonomy plan represent a dangerous precedent that threatens the entire international legal system, and the Security Council has not given this plan any priority since its presentation 18 years ago. The fundamental principle of decolonization is not to impose a single option on colonized people and deprive them of their right to freely choose their destiny.
The Sudanese army announced on Friday that it had regained control of the strategic city of El-Dubaibat in South Kordofan state. In statements to Al-24 News, Sudanese army spokesperson Nabil Abdullah confirmed that the armed forces' control of the city of El-Dubaibat has made significant progress given that the city connects South and West Kordofan.
Thank God, today we in the Sudanese Armed Forces liberated a very important area, the Adbibat area. This area is located in the Kordofan region in western Sudan. It is very important because it links southern and western parts of Kordofan. This is a major development for us in our operations. God willing, it will open the door to delve deeper in western regions of the country. At least within a few days, the entire capital, or the Al-Khartoum, will be completely cleansed from the rebels. These efforts come within the framework of the great and continuous efforts of the armed forces to cleanse the entire national territory from what remains from these militia.
The Sudanese army also announced the recapture of the strategic Al-Atroun area in North Darfur state from the Rapid Support Forces. The official spokesman for the Joint Force of Armed Struggle Movements in Al-Fashir, Ahmed Hussein Mustafa, confirmed that regaining control of the Al-Atroun area is part of the military plan drawn to liberate every inch of Sudan from the Rapid Support Forces.
There have been great victories achieved by the Sudanese National Defense Forces, the joint forces of the National Defense Forces, and all other regular units in Al-Karama battles. These victories were on the front lines. There was an important victory in the Desert Mounds, where our forces were able to defeat the militias concentrated in Al-Atroun area, and the operation will continue in accordance with the military plan to liberate all our country.
And the Sudanese government strongly condemned recent U.S. accusations and decisions, calling them political blackmail and distortion of facts. Spokesperson Khalid Al-Aysar accused the U.S. of obstructing Sudan's progress towards stability and peace, saying these policies resurface whenever Sudan advances. This follows U.S. threats of sanctions over alleged chemical weapons used by Sudan's government clashes in 2024. The United Nations warned on Thursday of a serious deterioration in the humanitarian situation in Sudan amid escalating violence and fighting in several parts of the country. UN Secretary General spokesperson Stéphane Dujarric stated that around 47,000 people have been displaced so far this May from West Kordofan state, in addition to 6,000 displaced from Abu Shouk camp and the city of Al-Fashir in North Darfur state. He noted that conditions are worsening in the capital Khartoum, where food prices are soaring and a cholera outbreak is spreading, further deepening the suffering of the population. Tasnim Al-Amin, spokeswoman for the Sudanese Doctors Network, reported to Al-24 News that the number of cholera cases in Khartoum has risen to 421 cases, all of whom were isolated in the hospital.
This evening, the Sudan Doctors Network team recorded 421 cholera cases in Khartoum state due to the use of contaminated water as a result of the power outage and the scarcity of clean water. Cases have increased in all of them, including Bashair Hospital, the Turkish Hospital, and the Ben Jadid Hospital. The spread of cholera in Khartoum state due to the increase in recorded cases from May 15 to the present day requires urgent intervention from health authorities, in addition to raising awareness of the dangers of the disease and warning against the use of untreated water or water collected from open areas and watersheds.
Omani Foreign Minister Badr al-Busaid announced the conclusion of the fifth round of Iranian-American talks in the Italian capital Rome, confirming that some progress had been made in the negotiations, though not yet decisive, as he put it. In a post on X, the Omani minister noted that the round witnessed positive steps, expressing hope that the remaining issues could be clarified in the coming days, paving the way for progress toward a sustainable agreement between the two sides. An Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said on Friday that there is potential for progress and in the nuclear talks with the United States after Oman, the mediators in the negotiations, presented several proposals. He added that the talks are complex and require further discussion. Following the conclusion of the fifth round of talks between the U.S. and Iran, Araghchi stated that both sides had completed one of the most professional rounds of negotiations. However, he noted that the time for an agreement has not yet come, and a final result cannot be reached through just 2 or 3 meetings, as he put it. And the 5th round of indirect talks between Iran and the US has concluded on Friday in Rome with limited progress, as uranium enrichment remains at the core of the fragile negotiations amid rising fears of military action, of Israeli military action, should diplomacy fail. Marwa Blauer has the report.
Tonight, a critical juncture in the ongoing nuclear negotiations between the United States and Iran. The 5th round of talks in Rome has concluded with limited progress, as both sides remain entrenched in their positions over uranium enrichment. Omani mediator Badr al-Busaidi described the discussions as yielding some but not conclusive progress, indicating that while dialogue continues, significant hurdles remain.
We've just completed one of the most professional rounds of negotiations. Once again, we clearly articulated the principal positions of the Islamic Republic of Iran regarding the negotiations. Our positions are completely clear, and we are standing firmly by them.
The United States, represented by Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff and Policy Planning Director Michael Anton, maintains that Iran must not retain any enrichment capability.
The president has been very clear, and I won't elaborate any further, that they are never going to get a nuclear weapon. It is not going to happen.
Amidst these diplomatic efforts, tensions escalate, as U.S. intelligence suggested Israel is preparing potential primitive strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities should talks fail. Iran is raising its tone, warning the U.S. would bear full legal responsibility for any Israeli attack.
If the delusional Zionist regime dares to commit any foolish aggression, it will certainly face a decisive and devastating response delivered directly to its small and fragile geography.
Despite this stalemate, both sides express a willingness to continue negotiations with hopes of resolving outstanding issues in future meetings. This 5th round in Rome may represent the final window to avert regional escalation. Zero enrichment remains the dividing line between a fragile peace and open confrontation amid a tense triangle of American demands, Iranian resistance, and Israeli warnings.
And the U.S. Department of State has announced on Thursday that it has imposed sanctions on Iran's construction sector, along with 10 additional sanctions targeting industrial materials with military applications. The announcement coincided with the 5th round of indirect talks between Tehran and Washington, which were held Friday in the Italian capital, Rome. And in response to those sanctions, to the U.S. sanctions, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghai stated on Friday that the new American sanctions on Tehran further cast doubt on Washington's willingness to engage in diplomacy. Baghai described the sanctions as illegal and hostile toward the Iranian people, calling the move both provocative and inhumane. He added that these multi-layered sanctions and coercive measures imposed by Washington are deliberately designed to deprive every Iranian citizen of their basic human rights. And the Houthi group in Yemen announced on Friday that it had targeted the Zionist entity's Ben Gurion's airport with a ballistic missile. Houthi military spokesman Yahya Sariya said that the missile force carried out an operation targeting Ben Gurion Airport, located in the occupied Yafa region, using a hypersonic ballistic missile.
رفضا لجريمة الإبادة الجماعية التي يقترفها العدو الصهيوني بحق إخواننا في قطاع غزة.
In response to the genocide the Zionist enemy is eminently committed against our brothers in the Gaza Strip, the missile force of the Yemeni armed forces carried out a qualitative military operation targeting the Lod airport, known in Israel as Ben Gurion Airport, in the occupied Yafa region. with a hypersonic ballistic missile. The operation successfully achieved its goal, thanks to be God. It caused millions of Zionist invaders to flee to shelters, and airport operations were halted.
And finally, US President Donald Trump has threatened to impose a 50% tariff on the European Union starting next month, citing stalled trade talks between the two sides. In a tweet, the American president stated that dealing with the European Union is difficult and that the trade negotiations will not lead to any outcome. He also pointed out that the US runs a trade deficit with the EU of more than $250 million annually. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a wrap for tonight's program. Thanks for watching and have a great night.